call to order the regular City Council meeting for Rochester, March 13th, 2017. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dalden.
Here.
Russell. Here. Dixon absent. Cuthbertson.
Here.
Giovanelli absent. Peterson.
Here.
Ray.
Here.
Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody, on this nice, sunny,
Warm day.
snowy evening. First, we have public comment. We don't have any presentations this evening, so I'd like to open up the floor to miscellaneous public comment. Anybody would like to address the council? Mr. Zook.
You're going to love to see me go tonight because I have a list.
Awesome.
First quick comment. Sundial, still not a good idea. Farmers market, still not a good idea. Rah-rah, put up new lights in the parking lot. Nowhere near complying with the light ordinance. If you're driving down Letica coming toward town, by the time you turn the corner from OPC, you cannot see the street. It's so bright. Somebody's going to get hit from being blinded from the lights.
Okay.
It should be as simple as an adjustment.
Okay.
The Badger water meters. There's been a big controversy in a few cities throughout the country. And this January, a mayor had to resign because of his resident. It was proved that he wasn't living at the residence he claimed to be because of information from the Badger water meters. What is the policy on releasing the information that's gained from our water meter readings?
Nick, do you think you can answer that now, or?
Can you clarify that a little bit, Steve?
The mayor claimed, this newly elected mayor claimed to live in the city at a specific address. The specific address that he claimed to live at had very limited water use, no toilet flushes, no nothing. Somehow someone got the information, presented it, and he had to resign. What is the city's policy going to be on releasing that information to someone other than the homeowner of that?
Well, check with our city attorney, obviously. My gut would tell me it's private information. You can FOIA records, but I would think that that's public knowledge.
Well, I think I would, before you comment on it, you would look into it, so we'd make a right statement.
Absolutely, and if, Madam Mayor,
absolutely.
if there's any information you have on that, you could certainly forward to Nick, and he can forward to me to maybe speed the process. I don't even know what information the city collects, so maybe that's an easy answer for.
The city collects usage. You can, by looking at that meter, you can tell at what time and which toilet is being flushed in my home.
Right, that's right.
Right, and the gentleman who made the claim on the overage on the water bill, all of that information is in the packet that had to do with his house. All that information was released through the city, through the packet. So if you want to see exactly what's in there, that's where you can find it.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Could maybe I ask for maybe an expanded report that articulates actually, what information is captured at what intervals?
Yes.
I'm sure we can't tell which toilet is being flushed,
You
but
can.
perhaps a uptick in usage certainly.
Well, it actually shows specific units. Now, if
Units.
Yes, if you,
Yes.
gallon is the flush. Now, if you have three toilets, one's a 1.6, one's a 1 gallon, one's a 5 gallon, you're gonna know which one you flushed. It shows that clearly when you look at that. Just take a look. You'll be able to figure it out.
So that is in essence the nature of the inquiry, is what kind of information is collected, what information in terms of a privacy policy may apply or not apply, and what information might be subject to FOIA. Generally speaking, FOIA is fairly broad,
Yes.
but if there is an articulable privacy interest in individually identifiable information related to the data, there's perhaps an exemption that relates to that. But I think the city would be wise to set an expectation about what we would release, right? Summary bill information, total units consumed, that sort of thing would
that's-
seem fairly ordinary.
Right.
But let's do a little bit deeper dive in that way.
This is when it's event to event, in a minute to minute, second to second. It's very, very comprehensive when you look at it.
Got it.
Thank you.
And we have a neighbor who early this season had a mailbox knocked down by a city truck. And back in that time, he called in and they told him that there was a limit on what he could charge, what they would do to do it. And he hasn't had a response from the city yet, and it's still laying in the street.
Okay, we'll look into it.
Right, and, you
Yeah,
know,
man.
he
Yeah,
seems
I
to be
think
fairly
Nick has
upset
the
about it.
information.
Yep.
All right, anything else?
Yes, this is the one that I'm really reluctant to talk about, but I was very upset on the planning meetings, the discussion at the planning meeting on this last Monday on the 6th. The discussion about the special projects, the reference to pay-to-play, the discussion on how, now that we have a guaranteed, a designated zoning, how they can get around that and collect more money for infrastructure. It was very upsetting to hear that, and when you listen to it, it'll make the hair on your neck stand up.
I don't think that was the intention. I think Nick will
No, I
back that.
know it may not be the intention.
What we talked about, well, then, at the next planning commission meeting, we'll make it very clear that that wasn't the intention and what the intention was of the discussion.
Okay, because, I mean, it really looked bad. If the right people look at it, it could be subject to a RICO investigation.
Okay, we'll look into it.
So, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Any other public comment? Please come forward. If you could just state your name for the record and address. Thank you.
Susan Lawrence Stocker, 1311 North Main. I don't know if this is the appropriate time to comment, but I have a letter that my husband composed about our house being designated historic. Unfortunately, because of the weather, he's really quite ill, and he was unable to attend, so it'd be my intent to read his letter.
You
and
should do it under the next
Under that
I think.
item?
Next item, if you
Should
will.
it
We're gonna-
wait?
If you'd
Yes.
like, I will let you know when it's
Great,
time to come
thank
up.
you.
Thank you so much. Any other public comment? If not, we'll go ahead and move forward. Next, we have approval of the minutes. First, we have a consideration of the minutes of the special meeting of February 11th, 2017, and the regular meeting of February 27th, 2017. Mayor Pro Tem.
So move with a comment.
Yes. Do I have a support?
Support.
Support by Councilmember Peterson. And your comment?
On the February 11th agenda, there was discussion from the planner about data on the Pazer needing one more year to complete the full analysis, and that's not in the minutes. So I don't know if we can look up Gordy's discussion and put that piece in the minutes, please.
Any other, yes.
I'm curious. I don't quite follow the full analysis part of that. I don't quite recall that.
So Gordy was talking, when we were having the Pazer discussion about, how do we get the data? So when we're making policy, how are we going to put into policy what the caveat of the Pazer rating was going to be, if it's going to be good, fair, bad. And he said he didn't have the third year measurement yet, and that would be his full analysis on that third year. And so I think it's important, because he is our engineer that's guiding us through this process of what we need to do for infrastructure, is that in the minutes to show that we don't have quite the full data yet, but he's very close to getting that, and he needed one more season. I'm not sure exactly what he said. I can't remember. I didn't have it taped.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to see the draft minutes on that, because in the conversations we've had at the infrastructure committee meeting, the data collected is reliable in and of itself for purposes of trending analysis. That I think he has said he'd feel more confident in the the very longer term projections about where the data will trend with an additional sample of a third data sample. But I think the data in itself is complete each year. So I think if we're talking about the same thing in that context, I think the spirit of the minutes should certainly reflect the, the confidence interval and the trending analysis being improved by a third set of data. I think that's what he was trying to get to, if I'm correct.
And I agree, it has to do with the trending, but to have a complete, my understanding, and maybe I misunderstood him, did you tape those minutes? Did you tape that?
No, that's not taped in the middle of there.
That's unfortunate.
Just
Maybe
get a
we can
report from
ask,
him.
maybe ask Gordy
I'll
of
look
what
through the
that.
report and see if it's in there to begin with, and then
Okay.
I'll
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Any other, yes.
So did we just put this on we're good with it? Okay.
I think that, yeah, that,
Okay.
No, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Yes. I was under the impression that we wouldn't be voting on anything at that meeting, so that was my concern.
Let's see. Yeah, somebody did make a motion on that one for the budget for the paving. We did do that. Any other comments? Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dalton,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Cuthbertson,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Ray.
Yes.
Next, we have approval of the consent agenda. Nothing this evening. Next, we have old business tabled items. A discussion regarding the 1311 Main Street landmark property. If you'd like to come forward now, go ahead and read your letter, and then we'll go ahead and Nick will let you, and then Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you. As I indicated, I'm Susan Lawrence Stocker, and my husband had really hoped to be here this evening since this was set up for us to discuss this. We collectively have been unable to attend since the first couple of meetings due to his severe illness. So, forgive me if I get tenses wrong and whatever in this. Thank you for allowing me to address the council prior to the vote on the landmark historic designation of our home at 1311 North Main. We thank you for delaying the vote while my husband David is recovering from a life-changing illness. He is slowly but surely regaining his health. David has been a businessman who owned an office building located in Rochester for over 30 years. David and I have also been residents during that time. We've been advised that this is our chance to address why our home should be considered as a landmark historic in the landmark historic selection process. It is our belief that the city should be addressing why this process exists outside of a voluntary opt-in for homeowners, as it declared in 2 meetings David attended last year, and not based on some delusional codes of historic specifications espoused by a non-resident of Rochester, Mr. Zerman, his colleagues, and City Council supporters. Our reaction to the process includes that we feel targeted. We are well past retirement age, and we love our home of 25-plus years. It is an asset, an investment, and as with most people, we are relying on being able to exercise our options for that asset in a retirement and do so without a committee's approval as we prepare for home remodeling or sale. We believe we have the right to our options without the possibly illegal infringement of a committee oversight. While the council has said that the actions are in keeping with legislation out of Lansing, we are unaware that it is in the city's best interest to fall in lockstep with Lansing's thoughts. We have faithfully maintained our home as a period residence, but it's a little late in our lives to be trying to make up any loss in asset or to incur the cost of historic maintenance determined by a self-aggrandized group of so-called experts and their demands. Case in point is our roof can no longer be repaired. There is neither the tradesman who understands the process nor the heat-treated tiles readily available. What fight would there be if the above referenced group demands a tile replacement instead of a shingled roof. Well, will the group pay for that replacement? We are concerned as to our ability to sell our house, much less recover its true value, which, in spite of Mr. Zerman's contention that a historical label increases value, which may be true in a large historical area, as in Romeo, it is considered, the opinion of realtors we have contacted, that the designation reduces the value when applied to a single home historical district. We believe we are the only house on our side of Main Street to be zoned strictly residential, which already restricts our ability to sell our home. The two houses at the corner of Ferndale and Main Street were, we believe, considered historical. We know for sure one was, and yet to make a developer happy, we're allowed to tear them down. This looks like cronyism. Further, what does the public think when they consider knowing the opt-out of residents of Mr. Haig, Vice Chairman of the Historic District Study Committee, and I'm going to butcher his name, Pitzik? Petrie? Okay. I apologize. The chairman of the Historic Commission, when neither of their properties were put into a mandatory and capricious designation as ours. The entire process leading to tonight's vote has been despicable. We were never asked for permission nor notified that someone would be walking around our house taking extensive pictures of our house in sufficient detail to count bricks under windowsills. Nor were we asked for permission to post pictures in extensive detail on the internet. We consider this to be an invasion of our privacy and a true security hazard. David sent letters to the council, the mayor, city manager, and Mr. Zerman, where he demanded the pictures taken by Mr. Zerman of our house be removed from the public domain. When he noted that Mr. Zerman's pictures taken around the house and through windows, which terrified our female student guest, he was advised in a letter from the city manager that the city's attorneys said that pictures taken from the street were within the city's right to use them. On pages 18 through 23 of your packet of the homes, of the material included in the council's packet tonight, you will note that some pictures are of the back of our house, and that is impossible to do from the street. I would tell you that our neighbor actually stopped the picture-taking process at one point. We would again demand that all publications in electronic or printed form with these unauthorized photos be removed and destroyed. A demand we have asked for twice previously and would welcome a circuit court's opinion if action is not taken. The city thinks the matter is a dead issue. We do not. There are instances of prior abuse on this subject, including a failed City of Ann Arbor attempted mandate and locally the O'Neill Pottery Fred Dunn restoration fiasco as two examples. It should be remembered that the Lenoir matter, while not completed, as it is alleged the city withheld evidentiary information, could become a serious and very expensive matter. Could that misguided and expensive foray into possible personal vendetta paid for with public funds be an example of what could happen in circuit court regarding our objection? It is for these reasons that this matter and process should end here and now. Further, we believe you will find discussions regarding conservation easements to be a concept which opposes the mandatory inverse taking of property, but rather pays for certain specified limitations to that property. This alternative is yet another reason to end this senseless, somewhat obscene action and power struggle, while noting we have incurred numerous expensive legal bills to be certain our objection can be upheld. It is our firm belief that any city council members' vote to include our house in the historical designation process should be viewed by city voters as complete contempt for property owner rights as well as what could appear to be rampant cronyism. We would ask that the printed notes from my presentation be included in the official record of this meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
David Stocker, Susan Lawrence.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, do you want to add anything, or should I go ahead and have Mr. Bilodeau?
If I might. Kenneth Bilodeau, 135 Maywood, speaking as a resident and in support of the stalkers. You know, the stalkers are angry, and I think they're rightfully angry. Okay? When people are angry, they lash out. But I don't think the fault lies with the Historic District Study Committee or any of its members. They did what you asked them to do. I think the fault lies with you guys. Okay? The thought that because the legislature deemed deemed the historic preservation to be a public purpose, the thought that then you could regulate that purpose to your own advantage without paying compensation is the problem. It's just a fundamentally fair process. If you take my property for a public purpose, if you take it for a street, you're going to pay me for my loss. Yet here, what you're doing is by instituting a local ordinance and a list, which I call the scarlet letter list, you've, by regulation, inversely taken property from them. Simple solution. If it's a public purpose, pay them for it. Pay them for their loss. It scares me, guys, because I know all of you, and I voted for most of you. Maybe not all. But it just scares me that this concept of paying just compensation when there's a taking, you are ignoring. It's just fundamentally scary to me. You can solve this very easily. You can pay them for their loss if you put their property on the list of fundamentally historic properties. The solution: don't put them on if you don't have the money. If you have the money, put them on. Buy the property. By all means. I'm all for history. I commend the members of the Historic District Committee. I think they did a fine job. I wouldn't agree with all of their points. I don't agree with all their properties. I don't agree with some of the properties they omitted. But you asked them to do a job. They did it voluntarily, and they should be commended. I'm not going to fault them. I fault you guys if you put this property on the list and you don't pay them. Thank you.
Any other public comment on this item?
Yes, Robert Bloomingdale. I debated whether to come down here tonight. I really figured I'm kind of probably wasting my time, but I'm going to give it a shot anyhow. I'm very much in favor of historic preservation, but I feel that individual property rights trump historic preservation. And I feel in this case, you know, we're basically forcing something on somebody that they are obviously very much against. And every presentation I went to with regard to this ordinance was that it would be voluntary. Everybody would have the option to opt out. And I think that they're making it known that they want to opt out. What Mr. Bilodeau said, I agree with. If it's very important to the community that this property be preserved, then there's a preservation easement that could be purchased from them. They could be compensated for whatever the fair deal is. I don't know what that is, but there is a such thing as a preservation easement that could be used to preserve the property and compensate them. I wonder if, you know, the community would be just as eager to put that designation on that property if there was a cost to others involved other than them. So again, you know, I am in favor of historic preservation, very much so. I do anything I can to help that process, but I think that our rights to our property trump that, and the decision is right here with you guys. This is, we can complain about what happens in Washington. We don't have much to do with it. We can complain about what happens in Lansing. We're pretty far away from it. But this is right here in our own backyard. This is your opportunity to also speak out and speak up and say, no, historic preservation is important, but private property rights are more important. So thank you for the time.
Thank you. Any other comment on this item? Okay, none being heard. Mr. City Attorney.
I will, thank you. I will make just a couple of statements. I almost treat the stakeholder letter and comments as akin to a threat of litigation if this vote goes a certain way, so I will keep my comments short. I do not advocate one way or another, but I will respond to some of the comments that were made. There seems to be a continued misunderstanding as to the nature of this designation. This is not a designation. This is not putting this particular property into a historic district. The city council could do that, could go through that process today, forgetting about the ordinance that it has in place. The city has always had that ability to start the process of actually putting this property into a historic district. And the comments made by legal counsel and others about restrictions on the properties would actually make more sense or more applicability if that was the case. In this case, all this list is a list of properties that the city has identified that they believe that are of real significant historical nature, that if a building permit or if it becomes clear to the city that that historic nature of that property is threatened in any way, that it could at that time start the process of considering to put it into a historic district. What the steps that this would do, it really is, I'm not going to say illusory, but the city could go further if it wanted to today and actually try to put it into a historic district. That's not what the discussion is today. It's merely putting in a list. Almost, the state statute doesn't allow for an opt-in. It doesn't actually say opt-in. That is unique and actually property owner friendly way of doing it. So I guess I don't see any issue with the words takings have been thrown out, I think, inappropriately, because there are no restrictions today as to what could happen to these properties. It's not, these properties wouldn't be in a historic district. There are some that have elected to go into historic districts, and those discussions would be more applicable. But let's say this ordinance didn't exist, and I think the example of the roof was used, and let's say that was a real critical part of the historic nature of this building, and a permit to replace that roof with non-historic materials. The city could still decide to put a moratorium on that property from being able to proceed with that until it decided whether or not it wanted to try to put that property into a historic district. So we're almost the cart before the horse is where the arguments are. Again, I don't advocate either way, but I'm trying to advise the city council that there still appears to be confusion as to what the outcome, if this vote were to designate this as a historic resource or historic district landmark, it doesn't put it into a historic district at all. So I just wanted to provide that information.
Okay. Any other council members have any? Yes, Councilmember Cuthbertson.
Thank you. The part of the comments from the homeowner that resonated the most with me are with respect to figures 5, 6, and 7, the illustrations, or rather the pictures in the packet. if they have an objection that has been stated to those pictures being included as not being from, a front elevation, then I think I agree with the request to have that stricken. And I was under the assumption those actions had been taken previously based on some of the correspondence that has gone back and forth. Having heard that, I think the report is thorough and confirms the historic nature of this property. None of that has been disputed. I think quite the contrary. I don't support the notion of trying to attach a revenue stream to historic preservation in this community. I think that's a cynical attempt to leverage one's position from an ownership standpoint to get some money out of the city. And I think that's just as cynical as the criticism that's been offered that somehow this is a obscene or cronyist process. It most certainly isn't, and I do take some exception to that. I do understand the concern, however, of the property owner about government lists. I share those general philosophical meanings, and whether or not somebody chooses to vote for individual members of council notwithstanding, I think the most obvious thing here that the city attorney has pointed out is the fact that the city's powers to put this property into a historic district exist in far greater measure than what's being done. What's being done is nothing more than an identification of a property that has significant historical value. It does not in any way bind the property owner or somehow cause the property owner not to be able to do anything today, tomorrow, or the next day. So I think the argument is one which attempts to conflate what this matter is with a actual historic district. And I understand as a rhetorical and as perhaps a political matter the attractiveness of that kind of argument. But for folks who, on one hand say they support historic preservation and then criticize the council for taking actions well short of what powers are actually vested by the Local Historic Districts Act, just doesn't square to me. So I appreciate the input. What I was hoping to hear tonight after, waiting for 3 or 4 months was here's why the report's wrong. Here are the specific issues that we have with respect to its historic nature, and I didn't hear those. So I'm not sure that my opinion of the matter has been materially influenced, threats notwithstanding. Thank you.
I just want to clarify that being on this list no further restricts any other house. It doesn't make restrictions on this home that any other home in the city does not have that's not already in the district. So let's say you opted in the district, and let's say I'm not in the district, my home. This home, being on the list, does not put restrictions on them that I don't have. So like if I want to get a roof, I can get a roof. Because for me, it was the part of this that I had to look at is it has historical significance, and if you pull a permit to demo it, then I think we should be made aware, and then the council at that time has the right to do what it thinks is best for the community and the homeowner. Am I going down the right path on this? Yes.
I think that's fair. Although I would say that if the city, let's use the roof example since that's
Yes.
one used. If that is a critical part of the historic nature of this property, such that city council, say there's a permit to replace the roof. If city council decided that would be detrimental, significantly detrimental to the historic nature of this property, it could then halt that and then go down that process of maybe putting it into a historic district. I just don't know, if that roof itself would be a trigger such that city council wanted to go that route. So yes, you are absolutely correct that today there's nothing stopping the property owner from seeking to change the roof out or to paint the exterior or to do things. If it damages the historic nature, city council can at that time decide whether or not they want to try to stop that particular action. It's not preventing something today.
By
from-
being on the list.
That's correct.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem.
The problem is that a homeowner does not want to be on this list. And at several of the meetings sitting up here, that was very clear that we were going to give them an opt-in, opt-out status. Now that we have, it's a beautiful home. It's absolutely a beautiful home, and the tile roof is one of those. And putting them on this list does give them a binding of freedom that my house wouldn't have. So once you put them on the list and they want a demo or they want to redo their roof, under my understanding is it comes before this body. So that I don't have to do that with my home. So it's very different from what my home is currently to when you go into this designation. So it's a beautiful home. It's historic. It's whether you feel the historic trumps someone's personal right. In my opinion, as I stated before, that it's their property. They own it. It's not our property. And so I do agree that their personal property rights do trump that. Do I hope that we can preserve that if they wanted to do something? I would hope that they would come before us so we could figure that out. But do I want to force them on a list? Because yes, we are putting another demand on them that is not all of our demands on our homes. None of us have that demand. So if we want to replace our roof or we want to tear the house down or rebuild another beautiful home, we have that right. That right will be taken away because they have to go through a process, and then we have to figure it out. So that timeline is now in play. So make no bones about it, when you're on this list, there is something else that has to be done to a home, not just like our regular homes. So I am not in support of putting you on this list because you don't want to be put on this list. It's simple for me.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, I will start out by saying I'm not in favor of that either. I haven't voted for this since the beginning for a few reasons. One, as the local realtor and dealing with other municipalities who have the historic districts, everything to do with that house does need to have permission unless we're going to do it different. But it has hindered many homes from being updated and kept up to date. And I do fear that if we were to put them on the list and the roof needed something in the future, that going back and forth is going to prevent the home from getting taken care of properly and then probably cause more damage to it in the future. A couple things that were brought up, and I don't know, I have to assume that they are true, but I do not like the fact that the privacy and the trespassing on somebody's property took place at all. That is totally something that, if they did not have permission to do that, and this is already out there, that is something that is really wrong, and I do have a problem with that. And I think there's too many unknowns right now, because if we put them on the list right now, you never know who's going to be sitting up here later on and how someone's going to feel about something, and I just think that it's putting them at risk further down the road to say, okay, you're not there right now, we're just going to put you there, but if you do need that roof or you need something else to happen, that we're going to be in control of it. I cannot support something like this here that takes away every right and actually does diminish the value of the homes, because this historic designation, and I've read the report that was given to us, but being a part of the real estate market, you do not increase your value unless you are in a significant area and it's a full-fledged district that's been there for many years. Thank you.
Did you?
Why not? Where to start? Well, I appreciate certainly the letters and the communication and the effort, everything else. For what it's worth, I sincerely hope that no one thinks that I'm a crony or capricious or delusional or self-aggrandizing or certainly anything like that. I'm just trying to do the very best with the information that I have for our community. I would agree with some of the things about or rather the comments on the pictures taken from, on the private property. That's certainly regrettable. Up to this point, and maybe it's immaterial now, but, when the discussion about having or documenting landmark properties was entered into the ordinance, or at least brought up in discussion, just for context, how long that was publicly known that was part of the ordinance and not something that was, some sidebar conversation. Yeah, the whole point of the landmark property designation, which in the letter that was provided, there was a suggestion that, certainly wouldn't want people coming visiting the home because it's on a landmark property list. I certainly hope that wouldn't be the case, and I wouldn't expect that list be overtly made public in any kind of advertising thing. I think it's just an effort of the city to document what the percentile is, what 10 out of 16 or 6,000, 7,000 building, whatever percentile that is in terms of that percentage of the 10 most historically significant properties in the community. And my interpretation of that was always been to simply have just a conversation before a building was razed to the ground. And that, maybe some discussion could be had about what would happen to that property. But I certainly respect that the property owner is viewing it from the extreme in terms of what could happen, who would be up here, and how that would be interpreted in terms of, whether the tiles have to be replaced. I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't know what it takes to replace the tiles. But I certainly appreciate the fact that in reviewing this property, it's, depending on how this vote goes, is either going to essentially stricken landmark properties from the ordinance or not. Am I incorrect, Mr. Attorney? I mean, if we choose to exclude one, is there any sense in having that part of the ordinance?
Yes, please.
Well, that would be up to city council. Obviously, the list already exists as to several other properties. So what's before you is a singular discussion. If city council decides to strike this provision, that is certainly something it has the power to do. But you voting against including this property in there wouldn't do that. It just takes this property or it doesn't put this property on that list.
That was going to be a question that I had also, Councilmember Ray, because to be consistent, I voted for all the others because of the report that was required on the historical significance. So I was following the ordinance and the what I originally voted for when we first did the ordinance, and I want to be consistent because it would do me no good to be inconsistent for every vote that comes in front of me, and I don't want to be that way. So I voted for the original back when we first did it, and I voted for every other property. What I was looking for was a reason of why that wasn't historically significant to be then removed from the list. And understand, I am empathetic, and to me, this property is unique in the fact that it is the only one on the list, if I'm not mistaken, that is actually owned as a resident in my residential property. Am I correct on that, Mr. City Attorney? Is it the only one that is a residential property?
I believe that to be the
Okay,
case.
and Whether I give that any extra weight is something that I have gone back and forth about, but understand that I'm not voting this because I'm crony or any, old boy girl network or anything like that. To me, I have to be consistent, and I consistently voted on this ordinance originally, and I voted for the list based on the fact that we charged the historical district with doing this and going and getting their information and coming back to us with a list that they felt was historically significant. And understand, you are right. The buck stops here. It does. It stops with us, and I understand that very clearly. But I also have to be consistent, and my concern was if I voted to not keep this, what effect does it have on the others, and is there a reason why this is going to be different than all the rest of the properties? So that being said, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Councilmember Ray, but you were going down the same road I was, and I just wanted to piggyback off that, if that was all right with you.
Joe, that's just fine.
Did you have anything else?
No, but I will say that I am trying to internally weigh the spirit of the landmark property use and then what's being laid out as this, certainly something to the contrary of the reason why it was included in the ordinance, and that I think the ordinance was unanimously passed originally.
It was.
And that, I have voted to approve all of the properties, and I certainly am mindful of, I don't want to say changing my mind, but viewing it through a different lens. But
If you want to sit there and weigh it, I'm going to call on the Mayor Pro Tem.
thank you.
Okay, this is why it's so critical. When we're up here making these ordinances, we have an intent. And I don't know if Councilmember Ray was on that when we made this, and I don't know if.
I voted
Okay.
for it. I want to
So
be perfectly honest about
Okay,
that.
but with this, Mayor, what was specifically said, and these meetings are on tape, is that it is our intent that people could opt out of this and that we were not forcing them. And when Mr. DeZerman came up in here and he said there was a list of, 22, and if someone really didn't want to be on there, then we have another list. So we have a list of 12. Well, there's someone that doesn't want to be on here, and we have another list that we can have. But we're not up here. We're up here because the intent was we're not going to force anyone, and that we had so many discussions on this, and that's why I voted for that ordinance too, because I had no idea that we were going to be in this situation where we have council members saying, well, I voted for this, so I'm stuck with it. We're not stuck with it. That's why we have the ordinance, and we had the intent for the opt-out. We have been saying that from the very get-go. That's what our meetings proposed, that they could opt out. We have other properties that we can put into the 12, the district that we're going to. So that's where our discretion comes in. This is where our vote comes in. This is where it really matters, where it's not just we say yes, so we're going to say yes to everything. We have a situation, they don't want to be in this list, and we have others that can be a part of this list. And this is where leadership comes in to say, okay, we have a property. Does property ownership matter? To me, it matters greatly. And this is the time where we say, okay, it's not going to affect all those other ones we opted in. They're opted in. All we have to do is choose another one from that list.
But, Mr. City Attorney, that list they went through the whole city. So it's not like if we remove somebody from that list, they slot somebody else in. Am I correct?
Sure can.
Well,
Yes.
they could. On the other hand, this was, for people's information, the ordinance was adopted in November of 2014. The city council did retain the ability to approve, modify, or reject the list. So if city council doesn't believe that a parcel or two that were identified should be on this list, then it can certainly vote to not. However, this section is 27-4, subparagraph 8. It is pretty clear that this process was going to happen, that these properties were going to, a number of properties were going to be identified. Whether that list presented is the ultimate one, that's up to City Council, as you indicated. But that was always the intent, is that this list was not made up of properties that only wanted to be on this particular list. The opt-in was an opt-in to be a historic district. The opt-in was not solely for this list. It was to be a historic district. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
And I'll just finish up. It's because when we sit up here, we each have an intent, and every one of us, I think, are trying to do the best job that we can for the community and for individuals. The thing is, when we say we have an intent, and we had a lot of discussion on this particular one of what the intent was, and that's where we get into trouble, because I know what my intent is, and it may be very different from everyone else's intent. But when we say that we can modify and we can look at that list and we can make a judgment and we're going to give freedom to the property owners, this is a situation that lends itself, at least in my view. So I hope that we are honoring the actual property owner and that we do modify that list and we put another person, another business. I mean, this is the only individual property. That was never my intent when I voted for this. Let me just make that very clear.
Mr. Bilodeau, I'm going to let you
I'm
get a
very
couple,
briefly,
very brief, because
because
normally I don't do this, but I'm going to go
I
ahead.
know, and I appreciate that. If I understood the city attorney correctly, the fact that this property is on a list or is not on a list doesn't matter. You can enact it as a historic. Your action tonight, if you don't put this property on the list, if you don't give it the Scarlet A, maybe it's the Scarlet H, if you don't give it, you still have the same power. Am I correct, Jeff? To start the process to force it to be historic. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yes.
that's which is
Right.
consistent
So-
with state law, right?
Right. And so you're not giving up any rights under your ordinance if you don't include it on the list. It is the only residence. I think that's a distinction. I'd urge you to not put it on the list.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cuthbertson.
Thank you. If I'm familiar with the code, as written, when the property is on the list and actions are taken by the homeowner, what they can, without having to go to a committee, they can get a building permit to do whatever it is that they want to do. They can do whatever it is that that they choose. The part that I think may be worthwhile to help the public understand here is, with respect to these properties, if a permit is pulled that fundamentally changes or potentially changes the historic character of the property, what would trigger the process for it to come here, right? Because this in no way says you have to go to the Historic District Commission to change gutters. That's not the case. This is not in a district. You don't have to come to the Historic District Commission or the City Council to pull a plumbing permit to fix a sink or to change a shutter. At what point, right? And perhaps this is where we can improve the code. At what point would it trigger administration coming to City Council and saying, look, we think this building is threatened and it should come here? That's the decision-making part of this that I think warrants clarification. We voted for the code. The ordinance exists. It was written in plain English, as far as I can tell. There's some people now that, as it's being applied, are less comfortable with the language. I get it, but we haven't repealed the language. And if we're going to mix and match and substitute and impose our judgment above that of the Historic District Commission or the Historic District Study Committee's recommendation, I might, as a policy matter, say, what's the point? I mean, it just sort of becomes this amorphous process. If we're not relying on the people that we've asked to do something, what's the point of it? But having said that, if people are uncomfortable with being on a list that is not a historic district, that in no way restricts their ability to do things, what is it that would trigger that coming to this council, for that council to say, geez, is this a demo permit? I guess that would probably would be a trigger. But short of that, what are we talking about? What are we talking about that is so catastrophic, that is so invasive, that is so prudentially wrong? It's a giant affront to the property market and the interests of property owners in this community, short of talking about a historic property being demolished. Where is it that is the gray area that people are uncomfortable with? Because if people are okay with just bulldozing, fundamental historic properties in this community that are on this list, geez, I guess we're really not for historic preservation. So what is it in between there that people are concerned about? And what is it that what administration would see that would bring the matter back to this body? Because I hope that might make some people feel better.
Yeah, to me, it's the demo. I don't want it. I want to know if it's going to be demoed. Anything short of that, I don't think it should come in front of us. That's just my own personal opinion, other than the demo. And so that's where I tried to clarify some of these other questions, like painting. If I wanted, what are the restrictions being on the list as of right now? So to me, the reason you're on the list is if you're going to pull a demo permit, I would hope it would come before us, because I can tell you, we get tons of calls when they're already done of why you didn't do anything. And so to me, this is the other side of the argument. The other side of the argument is it came before council, they pulled a demo permit. It was in the best interest of the property owner at that time to demo it, and so we approved it, let it go, whatever. So you see where I'm trying to figure out this part of it. And so it's not that I just vote yes, 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 or no, no, no. I have to be logically consistent, and that's what I'm trying to do with this. So for me, it's not that I just voted the same. There has to be a consistency, and there is a consistency in my head while you're on that list. To me, it's if you pull the demo permit, we're going to notify the city that you pulled someone's going to notify us. Mayor Pro Tem.
So when Mr. DeZerman was here, and I asked him about the roof, because that's a significant piece of the historic value, he said it would ruin the historic value, and that would trigger it. So to answer your question, it's not just demoing it, it's if they had to have a roof repair, that would be, they would pull a permit for the roof repair, and that would trigger then it going to, the city staff and bringing it to city council, because it's such a significant piece of the outside of the historic. I mean, that's what he said when he stood up there. So it's not just a demo, but if they had to replace the roof, now we're making them go through hoops that none of us have to go through. And do I want, if it was, I understand what you're saying with the demolition, but that's not what we were told. And am I incorrect in that?
So I'm going to call
that's
on
what
Jeff,
was said
and then I'll call
on that last meeting.
Councilmember Peterson.
Mr. DeZerman doesn't administer this ordinance. The city administration does.
Well, it was
and if there is an element that is being effectively destroyed that they're concerned about, I just read in this letter the tiles aren't produced, right? And there's no reasonable way to replace it as is. I get it, right? put the best roof, the most architecturally consistent that you can do. I would hope that somebody would be willing to do that, but there's got to be a roof on the building. I certainly, if this comes back here and the person comes up before us and says, look, the administration brought it to you, we disagree with that decision, but here's the problem, these tiles aren't produced anymore, and we would have to be pulling them 2 or 3 at a time across, 17 properties in 5 different states, and would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars just to do that. I'm going to say, replace your roof with something that's affordable and reasonable, right? But that's not the scenario that is concerning people. The scenario is bulldozing a fundamentally historic property of landmark significance to this community. It has happened. It will continue to happen until this body says, look, we want to put a line in the sand on certain properties that other experts have said these are the most important for this community. And if we don't do something along those lines, we will end up with a community that no longer has that history over time. And for me, it matters. It matters enough to have this argument, to have people come in here and question effectively question my integrity and question my service as a public official, tell me they don't vote for me, and the point is, it's worth it. It's worth taking that from people out here to say that this history matters. It matters enough to me that I know this is sort of devolving into a public hearing of interchanges, and we've had this conversation with all the other properties. We debated this ordinance in 2014. What I fear is going to happen tonight is we're going to come to some penultimate head of this discussion. We're going to take a vote, and there are 2 members of council who are not here. So, as just a general procedural concern, I'm inclined to want to table a decision on this property pending, the full council being here. We've waited this long already. I think there's 2 other members that probably have opinions on this that should be heard. But
So is that a motion to table to a meeting where do you want me to keep going on a discussion? I'm happy to.
By all means, I'm happy to make that discussion when everyone feels that the conversation
had
has
enough.
been fully and fairly had.
Okay, so Councilmember Peterson, I'll let you go ahead next.
Okay, well, I guess a couple things. Because this is the only residential property on the list, that is a little concerning, because there are a lot of other properties here in the community that I would have thought would have been on the list as well. I was not a part of the 2014 discussions. I wish I would have been, because the history I have of working with these properties out there, I think those are the elements that I wish that we had in place here already. So a homeowner, whether the current homeowner or anyone who was to purchase one, would know exactly what they were going to get into, of what their limitations were going to be, and all the restrictions that were going to be placed upon them. Without those or any guideline whatsoever in place right now, I find that it is not fair to anyone, current or in the future, to have to go through this here and then rely on another group of people on top of the historic commission that would be looking at it in the future as well to make those decisions. In the other communities where they have these already in place, every single thing about the house must be maintained. The shutters, the roof, everything. If it's a green roof, it must be a green roof. You cannot change those things. So we have to make sure that we have this list and the guidelines before we go ahead and impose any of this on anyone else. I do think that that's the biggest thing that we have here that we're looking at, is there's too many unknowns to be placed anybody on these lists. Commercial properties are totally different because they can still get state funding. Historic properties cannot, that are just residential. So they actually have a much better opportunity to stay in their original state. So I would hope that everyone up here would even consider that, and I wish the other 2 were here as well, because this discussion is very important moving forward. No matter how many properties have been destroyed in the past, just some of the homes that have come down in our community that no one has even cared about actually had a significant value to the community from one way, shape, or form. Every building here does. And I also find this very enlightening discussion because we have an elevator that, somebody's probably going to be purchasing, and that's going to come down and go somewhere else. And I remember when everyone was fighting to keep it standing. So this here doesn't make sense to me, and I really wish it would. But I do not like the fact that this is only residential property on this list, and that their rights have been violated already just by trespassing and the privacy in that. And I think a lot of consideration needs to go into that aspect with that. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
I'll let you get a short one
Thank you.
tonight.
I really appreciate that.
I'm
I know
feeling
this is
generous.
a break from your typical.
Long line to address the vote.
Yeah, but I just wanted to offer a perspective. Let's pretend I'm a developer, in that I'm looking around Rochester, which developers are all the time, and I approach this particular property owner or any particular property owner and say, I want to do a mixed-use development on that site, which is not dissimilar from the one just south of it, and I'll give you $1 million, $1.5 million, whatever it is, for your property. But it's with the intent. I am going to demolish it. I'm going to wipe it out, and I'm going to build something entirely new there. Now, just being on that list, if I'm a developer, I'm most likely going to steer away from that property because it's pointed out by city attorney that this council could place a moratorium on that property. Now I own it, and I can't do anything with it. So I'm not going to take that. It's called municipal risk. I'm not going to take that risk. And when we do that, we're preventing some property owner from cashing in on their $1 million nest egg. I understand the value and the significance of historic properties, but how do you reconcile that? How do you say, we're going to take your property and say, sorry about your luck, you can't cash it in. The only thing you can do with it, really practically, is sell it as it is. And then somebody else is going to step up and take on the same responsibilities, the same restrictions. Just being on that list puts you in a position where the council can issue or place a moratorium on construction on that property, and that's it. That person now no longer controls their property. And I just wanted to point that out. Thank you for your time.
Yes, Councilman Robertson.
There's an essential point here. The property is zoned residential. It cannot become mixed use. I understand the theoretical argument that Mr. Bloomingdale is offering, but as to this property, it's simply a red herring. What would happen here is you would be based on the underlying zoning, you'd be bulldozing a residential property for the reconstruction of a single-family residential property, to the best of my knowledge. It's zoned R1, correct?
Could it ever be rezoned?
Oh, and that's really the discussion. I mean, if somebody wants to cash in here, there should be a simultaneous application for a rezoning of the property. So, I think these arguments are interesting, but they're not as helpful when they're squared with the reality of the facts at hand. So, I think given the maturity of the discussion here, I'd like to make a motion to table consideration of this matter to such time as the full council will be present, and would request administration, barring some emergency, to confirm with, council members in the next several meetings when we all will be here, which is usually the case. This is fairly unusual.
Out sick. We have 2 council members. So do I have support on the motion to table?
Support.
Support by Councilmember Peterson. You did want to say something briefly, or would you like me to wait and take the vote to table? I'll take the vote, and then you're welcome to come up. Madam Clerk, the roll.
Dalden?
Yes.
Russell?
No.
Cuthbertson?
Yes.
Peterson?
No.
Ray?
Yes.
3-2, Your Honor. The motion passes to table the item to the next meeting. The full council will be here.
Thank you. Please come forward.
What I would like those members of the council that are here, and unfortunately the other 2 are not, which I do appreciate the delay, is this is our home, to speak to Kim Russell and Ann Peterson. we cannot live there much longer. My husband has been very ill, and we will need to move. And for this to be hanging over our head and the head of anybody that might buy that home, I think it would scare them away. It's enough that it's sitting on Main Street, that it is, to my knowledge, the only house zoned residential. That is already an issue. And, we've cared for it. We have not taken away from the period character of it. I'll shy away from saying historic, but it is our home. It is our investment. We have cared for it as an investment. And for someone to speak to the fact that there are business people that have businesses that are in historic buildings, most of them sitting in downtown Rochester, where folks have along the way taken care to preserve that area. Whether they have in rebuilding after the explosion on the corner of Main and University, they made every effort to make it fit. Our house doesn't fit in our neighborhood. The houses south of us have been destroyed, starting long ago. Glendale has been substantially remodeled. The houses across the street are long gone, and the houses that are there now don't even faintly resemble it. It's a standalone anomaly, and it's going to take a very unique buyer to want to buy it anyway, even though we have done things to the house to make it contemporary internally. And it's a private residence. It's been our home. And to have this hanging over us is unconscionable.
Well, I promise you, we will have a vote at the next city council meeting for you. We just don't have everybody here, and we want it, you understand.
I do.
And I
I do.
appreciate
and I,
you so much coming up and expressing your hardship, and I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
I have a question. On our master plan, is that supposed to be, in the future, did we want that zone to keep that residential, or do we want that in our master plan that we currently have? Do you know the answer, what we propose that to be zoned as?
I believe the whole strip, all the way to the end of the city boundary, would be office.
Including
It would
that
allow
property?
for the home to stay, but if someone wanted to go office, if it was done. But we are going to take each district, as we're going to start hopefully in a couple minutes, and work our way through. And when we find anomalies, we can make that adjustment. So it's not etched in stone, but in general, the corridor along Main Street was looked at for office.
Okay. And I would like the master plan piece of that when we come to this meeting next time to put that in. If there, I'd like what was written in that master plan and what was the intent for that strip of property and what that looks like, so that we are consistent with what we're supposed to be doing up here.
All right, we'll move on to public hearings. We don't have any this evening. Next is legislative deliberation. Consideration of an ordinance amendment regarding Chapter 34, Article 5, special events, second reading and adoption. Do I have-
Madam
Yes.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to table until the full council can be present to hear this matter.
Support. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Sheldon,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Cuthbertson,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Ray.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is consideration of a request to schedule a public hearing for a zoning ordinance amendment regarding the Downtown Edge 1 District, DE1. Do I have a motion to schedule a public hearing?
So moved with a comment, if there's
Yes.
support.
Councilmember Cuthbertson, do I have support?
Support.
Support by Councilmember Ray. Discussion, Councilmember Cuthbertson.
Yeah, it would be my hope that the text would be submitted to council well in advance of this, several weeks, along with the master land use plan as has been tweaked and adjusted. There have been some problems or unique situations with the land use plan associated with the master plan update. There's even been a number of changes, I think, that we've discussed up here as to some individual parcels. But that updated land use map, proposed land use map, I think has to be a part of the initial submission. So,
What I will request is this gets to council well before the next meeting, along with all the maps and everything that will go along with it.
it looks like the 10th of April is the planned
Yep.
hearing. So,
We have plenty of time.
yeah, I don't want anybody get this landing on their lap on a Friday.
Absolutely.
No, because it's all ready to go, so all we need to do then, okay.
Oh, yes, and Madam Mayor, that was my concern of
Yep.
voting for something I have not
Well, this is
had
setting the
any
public-
idea.
yeah,
Oh, I know,
yep.
but without having any information or discussion prior to just seeing a huge change that's going to take place.
Yep, we will definitely have everything. It was discussed at planning and maps, and maybe video could be there. to provide.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
And can we please have a bullet sheet if there's things that have changed in discussion at planning or city council from the master plan itself? Because that would be very difficult for us to go back and forth to try to figure out what was discussed at several different meetings. If we just had like a cut sheet or a bullet sheet, that would be, NVIDIA probably can provide that.
Next, I will, yes.
Madam Mayor, back on this here regarding the special events, I believe Mr. Crawford is in the audience to speak, but now that we moved
Oh.
it, so I don't know if he still wants to
Okay,
or wants
Mr.
to.
Crawford, please come forward.
Your Honor,
Thank
should we
you.
take a vote on this?
Oh, yes,
item
I'm
again?
sorry.
I
Madam
just-
Clerk, the roll, please.
Selden,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Cuthbertson,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Ray.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was
Yeah.
going.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to the council. I am not a resident of Rochester, so I live in Rochester Hills. My business is in Rochester Hills. I am a huge proponent of the community in its larger sense, and it's been brought to my attention of some changes that are happening with the funding for special events. Not all special events, the special events that you at this table feel is important. So that is a bit frustrating as how different events get put on that list and others aren't of similar capacity. But specifically, I'm talking about the Christmas parade. This Christmas parade for 65 years has come down Rochester Road, Main Street, for the benefit of all communities, not just this community. It has members of all communities in it, 100,000, 75 to 100,000 people from all three communities come to this parade. And to have a request to quadruple the cost for the Chamber of Commerce, the regional Chamber of Commerce, to quadruple that, I think should be a part of, maybe stymie it out to the point where it gets handled over a longer period of time, but to ask for the chamber to come up with 400, 4 times the current cost, I don't think is fair. Other events, you're increasing by 700%. And I think the public needs to understand that piece, to understand, is Rochester, like Rochester Hills, a community that supports the services, the community events, and that kind of thing, or is it not? That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank
you for coming this evening. Next is receipt of the annual liquor license inspection report. Chief.
Good evening. Before you is the annual liquor license report. We do provide this to City Council every year about this time of year. We go through and look at police activity at all of our licensed liquor establishments. We also look, myself and the building official, to go through each of these establishments and look for life safety and liquor license type violations, and those are noted here in the report as well. It's important to note that in nearly every establishment, police activity is down. And also, every year, our locating different violations are usually very minor in nature. Exit light is out, something like that, showing that our establishment owners have a commitment to safety and have been very appreciative to our suggestions, and those things over the years have greatly improved from when we first started doing these inspections. So I stand ready if you have any questions, and the report is here for your information.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
So thank you, Chief, for supporting or providing this report. And I think it's really all good news because the calls are down, and I was wondering if you had anything that attributed to that. And then I noticed the mills, it was really basically on the alarm. That was
Yes.
really the issue. So has that been taken care of? Because I know after so many alarms, then there's a fee that's associated with it, and so that's not helpful to them. Is there something that's triggering that, or did you figure out why there's so many alarms being?
A lot of times that can be a problem of a malfunction. The follow-up on those alarms is administered through the fire department, through the code enforcement arm, and so I don't have any independent information as to how those were resolved with reference to the ordinance.
Okay. So I guess at this body, one of the things that I believe it was the chief of the fire department, after so many alarms, then we would.
We start to charge.
We start to
Mhm,
charge.
absolutely.
I would like a report on that if possible, just because this one is kind of, it's significantly.
It's big.
higher.
It's a big
Yeah, it's a
number.
big
Should be expensive under the ordinance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, thank you.
Yeah, and one thing to keep in mind is that the ordinance is set up so that if there is a malfunction and the organization, company, business has taken steps to have the repair made, that can be a way to waive those charges. So it doesn't mean that 22 alarms necessarily equates
Sure.
to a violation of the ordinance. Part of the purpose of the ordinance is to make sure that people are aware of these problems and to get those fixed and maintained.
Well, I guess that's my point, is just to get us to a place where we need to be next year. Thank you. Thank
Councilmember
you.
Cuthbertson.
Thank you. Getting in the Wayback Machine, this process was instituted in large part because we didn't have an active annual review of this matter, and there were concerns that individual establishments or organizations were disproportionately consuming public resources in a way that was unfair and burdensome to the taxpayer. And we put in place a process to identify that, and we've adjusted in some cases additional ordinances to make sure that the taxpayer is getting a fair deal in the provision of public services to third parties. And I note that it's that same spirit that has undertaken our review of the special events policy, and I'm happy to see it working in this instance. I'm sure it'll work in others. With respect to RoHo, I remember that their 2014 taxes were a matter of some discussion last year, and that there was some established payment plan, and I wondered whether that was still on track, and just a general update to see if any other action is required.
To the
Yes.
chair, Madam Mayor, we did check on that, and they are on track. It's not a secret. Their business is for sale. They've filed bankruptcy. Rochester and Birmingham are there two that they're part of the class action bankruptcy, but those two seem to be taking care of the rest of the businesses. So we've been in contact with the owner, he with us. They kept on their tax payment plan with the county. They caught up some, actually, and they're in good standing with us that way. They're following their plan. So what the future holds for that, we're not sure. They could continue on, and it's a reorganization, I believe, more than, I'm not a bankruptcy attorney, but that's.
We have better priority than the average, even senior debt holder, so we'll get paid eventually. Yep.
I did have, anything else, Councilmember Cuthbertson? I did have a question about Paul's on Main. Is it pretty, because it's their first year, is that pretty, no concern there?
No, not at
That's
all.
all I needed, that's all I wanted to know about that one, because everybody else asked my other questions. Any other questions for the chief?
Great report.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, appreciate it. Next is receive a report from the Planning Commission liaison. That would be me.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was not present at the last Planning Commission meeting, though it sounds like I missed an important one.
So, and I was going to bring my quote, so Chairman Joseph Torrey resigned. And we were all very sad. And I had a really nice quote they gave in the paper, and I totally have lost it, but.
Is that
from
up
my
there
brain.
somewhere?
It's somewhere. Basically, we all know he's done a great job. He's really served this community well. Excellent chairman, a good friend. I came on that committee not knowing a whole lot, and he's been very patient. He's been great with the members of the audience that come up that are residents that have concerns. He will be very much missed. He and his wife have bought a home, not in the city, so he can't serve on that board. But I am taking steps so we can formally recognize him as a council moving forward. So besides that, we had 2 public hearings, one on the Downtown Edge 1 district, and that's what you saw tonight. The other is the public hearing for zoning amendment regarding the mixed-use 2 district, and that one we're still working on.
Yep.
Going back. We also had the garage discussion, and that is still one more tweak at that. And then we also talked about the mixed-use 1 MU district, and we had some suggestions for video on that. I do want to emphasize that Mr. Zook's comments, those are his interpretation. They have absolutely, it is not what was discussed in the sense of we're not talking about pay for play. So that is definitely his interpretation. But I think, Mr. Banda, that, I mean, it was a good discussion. We're talking about straight zoning and taking away those PICAs, the special, and then when you take away the PICAs, you lose some of the, sometimes people can offer, if they're in that PICA zone and they have a special project, they'll offer to build an extra sidewalk or put in trees. And we decided that you can't really ask for anything other than safety items, and that's what we talked about, was if they're going to be in the straight zone, they're going to propose a project that fits the zoning. You can't say we want 2 extra trees because it's a special. We don't do special. We did talk about, though, ways that they would have to make the project safe, and that's how we address those issues. So I think he misinterpreted, but I want to make it clear. I think you, Mr. Banda, if you would.
If I could go one step further, we talked about, with the PICAs, it was a great opportunity for us to work with the developer. It's a development agreement. It's just, I think Rochester was ahead of their time when they wrote that. And some people weren't comfortable with it. They were trying to get it tighter. So we talked about if you can clearly link an off-site improvement to the betterment of that developer, and they agree that a sidewalk connection would be good to do this, it would be not even negotiated. It would be worked out in the site plan because it's tie-barred to their development. That's it. And someone used those words and
Yeah,
had nothing to do with anything.
Exactly. It didn't have anything to do with that. So I just want to, go ahead.
And I was not there for
Yes.
the discussion, but let me be clear. If a developer comes in and offers to do something, right, of their own volition, that, hey, we think that doing X, Y, or Z is good for the community, good for the development, and they offer to do that as a part of the project plan, that is a matter that can properly be considered by the Planning Commission and ultimately the City Council to determine, is that sufficient with respect to the special project, now PICA, you sort of
Yes.
use the terms interchangeably. But these are not extractions. These are actually benefits that are being offered. And I do think that there really is some area that we could improve upon. I agree where, what if there is a difference of opinion, right, as to whether or not it is something that benefits the community off-site or on-site and as a whole is appropriate. And so I think tightening that piece down is certainly worthwhile. But I've said before, trying to make it a computer program where, it's a whole series of if-thens, it's never going to be that binary. There is some measure of discretion. But I do think some more guidance can be put together there. So how people want to interpret or consume those ideas is really up to them. I think, the suggestion this evening was someone might think that it's untoward. Okay, I understand that. So let's have the minutes from the planning commission meeting that are, once they're approved, and let's
can
bring them to
include them in the
council so
packet.
that we can take a look at it and understand the substance and the nature of the conversation. If people are not comfortable with that here, then the mayor and I can take it to the planning commission and, talk it through.
So, and I've been here 8 years, and never, ever in any of the special projects as a dollar figure, it didn't matter. It had nothing to do with money. It doesn't matter. Some have been a lot less costly, but more appropriate because it worked out for everybody. Never, ever was that
And that
part.
wasn't where the discussion was going, so I just wanted to make that clear. Next, we will move on to new business and miscellaneous referral. Mr. Assistant City Manager.
Thank you. Obviously, the check receipts are in your report. Upcoming for next meeting, the 327 meeting, couple highlights, presentation of the resident survey. So staff's been working with our intern and kind of all hands on deck to get the 1,200 responses in and starting to analyze. It's really good data. It's really interesting reading. Probably the best part are the comments, and we've tried to make it very clear that that's the most important thing, that you can hear exactly what the people say, not a number 5, a number 4, number 3, the comments. So we're going to find a way to not censor them, not try to. You're going to get a packet that's probably 80 pages that'll have them all in there. That's not necessarily the executive report, but we want you to see every single thing everybody said. So everybody's voice counts. And today we finished a map to see where they came from. This is anonymous, so we don't know the address. It's a code. But 46% was on the west side, 47% was on the east side. So that's very good that we've got a good representation of every neighborhood had a dot by it, and multiple dots, which I thought was pretty neat. So you didn't know until you started figuring that out. So far so good. So on the 27th, we'll talk about that. And then again, the public hearing regarding the programming of the remaining fiscal year 2015 CDBG funds. That's the money that we hadn't spent in the past years. We want to officially get it into one pot, so we move forward and do that. A couple updates. Snow. The guys we're working all day on the majors and the secondary streets. Now tonight they're going to the neighborhoods, clear that about 2. They've been salting, et cetera. For some reason it's working pretty good. The temperature's cold, but it's clearing it out. Tomorrow we'll tackle all the sidewalks on public property downtown. It's supposed to stop about 10:30, and it's been real light. So instead of doing it twice and wasting money, we'll get it all done at once. No complaints from downtown or anybody. It's not slippery. It's just kind of poofy. So that's helped us a lot. I appreciate the whole community, including my wife, in putting up what happened for poor DTE in this case. I don't think anybody would want that to happen to them or consumers or anything. The community was amazingly hands-on. Neighbors were helping neighbors. My own neighborhood, I don't know half the people in my own neighborhood because they're a little bit elderly and they don't come out a lot, but we found out who they were, and all my other neighbors, and it's a good example. I think it's a microcosm of what was going on all of the 5 days. We're checking on those folks. We did wellness checks. The police department went out and knocked on doors to make sure. If someone said, I haven't seen them for a couple of days, I think they're staying in there, they went in and did that. So we worked with Rochester Hills, and we got a couple warming centers set up. Not too many people took advantage of it, but the offer was there. The churches helped. The fire chief had met with the fire chief in Rochester Hills and Oakland Township to make sure that if people needed oxygen, special dispensation, we were ready. Somehow we got through it. That's a long time. I met somebody this morning that still had their power up because they had 3 homes that were on a tree that they haven't been able to get to yet. So I'm sorry for a few people, not many. That wasn't it was in Rochester Hills actually. But so patience was awesome by the community. Everybody took it serious. I appreciate all the public safety folks and staff and everybody. We didn't have internet, but everybody came to work anyway. We just were there for the phones in case people need anything. So kudos to the staff. Edison brought in a ton of people, and they did the best they could. And I think that's a good thing. So I'm sure we can learn some things from this, and we'll evaluate it with our public safety folks. And if we can do something better, I think we did a pretty darn good job, quite frankly, based on nobody complaining. I appreciate nobody called and said, "Can you get this done for me?" or "Can you call in?" But shit, there was 1 million people without power. It was tough. It was extremely difficult for a lot of people. So we appreciate everybody's pitching in and getting it done.
Thank you.
That's it.
Madam Clerk?
I have 2 items, Your Honor. You and Councilmember Cuthbertson were both absent the last meeting when I passed out the petition packets for running for city council. The due date for that is April 25th at 4 p.m. And there are other packets available at the clerk's office for anyone who's interested. And then the other item is items E and F on your agenda this evening could be made in one motion if council wanted to consider it that way.
Okay, thank you. Mr. City Attorney?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Councilmember Ray?
Nothing. I did prepare a short OPEB MERS update, but if you'd like, I can hold on to that one.
That would be
The
great,
rest of council is here.
because I think Ben would enjoy it immensely.
Sure. Other than that, nothing else.
Councilmember Cuthbertson?
Just to request an excused absence for the February 27th meeting.
So moved.
Support. Madam Clerk, the roll.
Dalden?
Yes.
Russell?
Yes.
Cuthbertson?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Ray?
Yes.
Councilmember, anything else?
No, thank you.
Councilmember Peterson?
All set, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Well, we had a lively weekend with our Founders Day, which was spectacular. Councilmember Ray was there, and our mayor and the great famous under the radar guy, Tom Dalden, were there to be a part of that. But I'll let you continue on that because that was just really spectacular. But I did want to announce that the State of the City is April 17th. You're all invited, but it is a ticketed. It's free, but it's ticketed, so you need to make a reservation for that. And then your handy dandy spring newsletter's out. It's awesome. There's great information in here. And it tells you about the bicentennial and the events that are coming up on there. So I would suggest that everyone read it. What else was that? I think that was pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a couple items. I want to thank the Historical Commission, Pat McKay from the Museum at Van Hoosen Farm, Christy Tavaro at the DDA for the excellent Founders Day presentation. It truly was an honor to speak and represent this community of Rochester. Our talk was we really enjoyed it, and Tom and I were so honored and pleased. But the inductees were really the true heroes of the day, and we have so many amazing people that have served this community. Every time I go to one of these events, I am just amazed and awed and inspired. So it was truly an honor to be there. So I want to thank all of them. I want to personally recognize Eldon Thompson. He is also moving, and he serves on planning, parking, and the brownfield development. He will be leaving those boards very soon. I also have asked for a formal presentation in the near future that we will honor Eldon. Eldon's another one that's a personal friend and has just done an outstanding job serving this community. So we will definitely recognize him formally. I want to thank the staff, the fire, the police for their work during the power outage. I spent time here because I didn't have any power, and I did all my work. So it was really nice to see what everybody does all day long. They went above and beyond to help the residents. I have asked them formally to give me some feedback on what we did well, what we can improve on moving forward. So I've tried to update council because we didn't have an official email. I know I texted all of you individually. I sent all of you personal emails individually because I wanted to make sure that you were kept up to date. Save the date for this State of the City. If you would like personal invitations sent out from the council members, I'd like you to send those information to Megan as soon as possible, and we will get those personal invites sent to your friends, family, and any dignitaries that you want to include. And that is all this evening. Any other public comment from, yes?
Matt, as a part of the public comment, I promised the resident that I would do this today. Collateral damage from the storm, obviously the trees. So I probably had over 100 phone calls of folks, and I appreciated their integrity by calling and saying, my tree's laying down, it snapped off. How long is it going to take me to get a permit? Obviously, I had them snap a picture, send it to me, or I went out there in between. So for anybody watching, if you have a tree down, you don't need a permit. Our ordinance is set up that way. Go ahead and get it taken care of. I really appreciate the people that cared enough to call and say, Mine's leaning. Well, if you can stand it up, that can happen, believe it or not. People will save some of the big spruces. You can pull them back and stake them, but if they're snapped, you don't need a permit. Go ahead and then do what you have to do to clean up and make it safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, done, we will need to take, I need a motion to go into closed
I
session.
will make a motion, but I forgot to do my important thing. So I cleaned out my in-laws' home, and we found the bicentennial Brother and Bush community of the pins. That was at the last bicentennial. The wooden nickels, the wooden dollars. So I'll be giving this to Christy.
Great.
So we have all these really cool, I don't know we have a napkin that's perfectly preserved.
We'll have
from their
to put
homes.
it in the museum. So I have a motion by the Mayor Pro Tem to go into closed session. Do I have support?
Support.
Support by Councilmember Peterson. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Without
Oh,
intent.
without
Without
intent
intent
to
to come out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Belden,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Cuthbertson,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Ray.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.